The sudden encounter. In the far reaches of the Andromeda expanse, the stars glittered like scattered diamonds against the endless blackness of space. Captain Ryland Vare guided his sleek starship, the Eclipse Hawk, with calm precision through a dense asteroid belt. His eyes scanned the console, analyzing every movement of the massive rocks that floated like silent giants in the void. Space travel had always demanded focus, but tonight, something unusual stirred his instincts, something urgent. A red warning light blinked insistently on the console. Ryland leaned forward. A distress signal pulsed, unlike anything he had encountered before. The signal's code indicated high-priority danger, the kind that could mean imminent death. Without a second thought, he altered the Eclipse Hawk's trajectory. "Let's see who needs a little human help," he muttered, his voice calm but determined. As he approached the source, a small shuttle came into view. It moved erratically, dodging bursts of energy that lit up the void like deadly fireworks. Ryland's heart sank as he recognized the peril immediately. The shuttle was under attack and the shots were targeted, precise. Whoever, or whatever, was firing, they intended to destroy that craft completely. Inside the shuttle, a young woman struggled at the controls. Her silver and blue uniform shimmered even in the dim glow of the cockpit. She was graceful, almost ethereal, yet her eyes burned with determination. This was Princess Leora Valen, the heir to the Celestari Empire, one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Stories of the Celestari had reached Ryland's world, tales of a civilization centuries ahead in technology and unmatched in diplomacy. But nothing could have prepared him for the sight of the princess fighting for her life in a fragile shuttle. Ryland's fingers danced over the controls of the Eclipse Hawk. He calculated trajectories, shield strengths, and energy output in a matter of seconds. "Hang on," he whispered. He angled the ship directly between the shuttle and the incoming blasts, bracing against the violent shakes of the asteroid belt. The first shot hit the Eclipse Hawk's shields with a thunderous impact, sending vibrations through the hull. A second shot followed, deadlier than the first. Time seemed to stretch as Ryland focused on a single goal: protect the shuttle at all costs. He launched a precise counter-energy pulse, intercepting the fatal blast just meters away from Leora's craft. The explosion rippled across space, light and heat scattering in a spectacular display. His ship groaned under the strain, warning lights flaring as systems overloaded. The shuttle drifted free, intact but trembling. Ryland barely had time to register his success before a violent shockwave rocked the Eclipse Hawk. Panels sparked, the floor tilted beneath him, and darkness clawed at his vision. He felt the edge of consciousness slip like sand through fingers, a cold, unyielding pull dragging him into nothingness. When Ryland's eyes finally opened, the world had completely changed. Gone were the familiar consoles and blinking lights of the Eclipse Hawk. Instead, he lay on a surface smooth as glass, reflective and faintly glowing. Towering columns stretched toward a sky he could not see, their surfaces shimmering with colors that seemed alive. The air itself vibrated with energy, warm and humming softly. He struggled to sit up, his body stiff from the shock of the prior explosion. Before him stood a group of beings unlike any he had ever seen. Their forms were humanoid, yet their skin gleamed with metallic hues, gold, silver and blue, like living jewelry. Eyes of pure luminescence regarded him with an intensity that made him feel simultaneously small and important. And then he saw her. Princess Leora Valen. She was more magnificent than he remembered, standing at the center of the room, radiating authority and grace. But she was not alone. Around her were dozens of figures in ornate armor, their expressions unreadable, weapons at the ready. These were the Celestari Royal Guards, elite protectors of the Empire, and they were scrutinizing him with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. Ryland realized immediately, he had survived the blast, but not in the way he had expected. Somehow he had been transported, carried across space and into the heart of an alien royal court. He struggled to make sense of it, his mind racing. Why was he here? How had he survived? And what would these alien beings do to a human who suddenly appeared in their sacred halls? Princess Leora stepped forward, her movements elegant and fluid. Her voice, soft but commanding, filled the room. "You saved my life, human. Such courage is rare." Ryland straightened, trying to project confidence despite the pounding of his heart. "Captain Ryland Vare," he said, bowing slightly, "at your service." "I did what anyone would do." A ripple of murmurs passed through the royal guards. The Celestari were known for their logic and composure. Displays of emotion were rare and carefully controlled. Yet something in their eyes, curiosity, wonder, perhaps even admiration, told Ryland that his actions had made an impact. Days passed and Ryland slowly began to understand his new surroundings. The Celestari Palace was a marvel of architecture and technology. Walls pulsed with energy, floors reflected the glow of the hovering lanterns above, and corridors twisted in ways that challenged human perception. Every movement, every gesture, was guided by centuries of tradition and precision. Princess Leora, however, treated him differently than the others. She trusted him, spoke openly with him, and shared fragments of her fears. Fears about threats looming on the edge of the galaxy, about political enemies who would stop at nothing to destabilize her empire. In turn, Ryland shared what he could of his world, his human ingenuity, and his experience with danger. Slowly, a bond formed between them, built on mutual respect, courage, and the knowledge that together they could face whatever threats came next. But even as he adapted, Ryland could not shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with civilizations, dangers, and secrets that he had yet to encounter. And somehow, fate had brought him here, not just to save a princess, but to change the course of an entire alien empire. As he stood beside Leora in the glowing palace hall, Ryland felt a strange mixture of awe and determination. He had entered a world beyond imagination, faced death, and survived. And though the path ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. His journey among the stars had only just begun. Awakening in awe. When Captain Ryland Vare finally opened his eyes again, the world around him seemed both familiar and utterly alien. The sharp, metallic lines of his starship were gone. Instead, he lay on a smooth, reflective surface that shimmered faintly with a soft, blue glow. Above him, the ceiling stretched impossibly high, adorned with floating lights that pulsed gently like stars captured in crystal. Every surface seemed alive, vibrating with energy that he could feel in his bones. Ryland slowly sat up, his muscles aching from the blast and the unknown journey that had brought him here. He noticed figures moving around the hall, tall, regal beings with skin that glimmered in shades of gold, silver, and pale blue. Their eyes were not just color, they radiated light, moving with precise awareness. Their armor was elegant yet functional, etched with patterns that told stories of centuries he could never imagine. And then he saw her, Princess Leora Vallon. She stood at the center of the room, the glow of the palace reflecting off her silvery blue robes. Her presence commanded attention, yet she radiated calm. Around her, dozens of other figures, Celestari royal guards, watched Ryland with sharp, calculating expressions. Weapons hung at their sides, their stances rigid, yet nothing about them seemed aggressive. Instead, their gazes were curious, analytical. Ryland's mind raced. Where was he? How had he survived the blast that should have destroyed him? And why had he been brought here, into the heart of an alien royal court, surrounded by beings who had no reason to trust him? Princess Leora took a step forward, her eyes fixed on him. "You are alive," she said, her voice melodic yet commanding. The Celestari do not often witness such courage, and survival against impossible odds. Ryland struggled to respond, his throat dry. I did what I had to," he managed, bowing slightly. "Captain Ryland Vare at your service." A murmur swept through the surrounding guards. Ryland sensed their curiosity and perhaps something more, respect. Though humans were rarely encountered in this sector of the galaxy, it seemed his actions had made an impression. The princess gestured for him to rise fully, and he did, taking in the palace in awe. The architecture was breathtaking. Towers that seemed to float without support, walls that shimmered with moving patterns, and energy streams flowing like rivers of light through transparent floors. Every detail suggested not only beauty but intelligence, precision, and centuries of knowledge. As Ryland moved cautiously, he realized the air itself carried energy, subtle currents that made the hair on his arms stand on end. The palace was alive in a way he could not comprehend, yet he instinctively understood that it was harmonious, balanced, and deeply powerful. Why am I here?" he asked finally, breaking the silence. Princess Leora studied him carefully. "You saved my life. That alone would have earned you recognition. But something more unusual happened. The Celestari believed you would perish. Yet here you are, alive. Our technology, our understanding of the universe, it is extraordinary, but even we could not predict this. You have survived what few could." Ryland felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had acted instinctively, relying on his human instincts, courage, and experience. Yet, standing in this magnificent palace, surrounded by beings centuries ahead in knowledge, he realized how small and fragile humanity could seem. Still, he also felt a spark, something uniquely human, that had carried him through the impossible. Over the next hours, Rylan was escorted through the palace. He observed the elegance and sophistication of the Celestari culture. Rooms that floated mid-air, corridors lined with living energy conduits, and chambers where information streamed as luminous patterns that shifted like flowing water. Every room seemed designed not just for function but for thought, contemplation, and the pursuit of knowledge. The guards continued to watch him closely, their expressions unreadable. Despite their elegance and discipline, Rylan could sense a question lingering in their minds. Why is this human alive? Why did he succeed where logic predicted failure? Finally, they reached a room at the heart of the palace. It was large, circular, with a floor of polished crystal and walls that shimmered with soft light. In the center stood a device, tall, intricate, and humming with energy. Princess Leora approached it gracefully and placed a hand on its surface. The light shifted and swirled, forming images of distant star systems, ships, and strange alien beings. This, she explained, is the archive of the Celestari Empire. It records the events, knowledge, and history of our people. Few outsiders have ever seen it. Few even survived to witness it. Rylan stepped closer, mesmerized. The complexity of the archive was breathtaking. He realized that understanding it would take years, even decades, but he was determined. He had been brought here for a reason, and he intended to discover what that reason was. Princess Leora turned to him, her expression unreadable yet sincere. Captain Vare, your presence here changes everything. You are not merely a survivor, you are a part of something greater now. But you must understand, our empire faces threats beyond what you can imagine. Danger lies not only in space but within our own ranks. The fact that you survived may be the first step in a story that will reshape the Celestari Empire itself. Rylan nodded, determination rising within him. He had faced danger before, had risked everything to protect lives. Yet standing here, in a palace of unimaginable beauty and power, he realized that the challenges ahead were unlike anything he had faced. This was more than a mission. This was a journey that would test the limits of his courage, intellect, and spirit. Hours passed as Princess Leora guided him through the palace, introducing him to advisors, scholars, and strategists. Each interaction revealed the vastness of Celestari knowledge, the depth of their culture, and the precision with which their society functioned. Rylan felt both humbled and inspired. Here, among beings far more advanced than humanity, he discovered the true meaning of courage. Not merely surviving but thriving, learning, and contributing even when the odds seemed impossible. As night fell in the Celestari capital, though night was unlike any human night, marked by shifting patterns of energy in the skies, Rylan stood beside Leora on a balcony that overlooked the city. Towers glowed softly, streams of light danced like ribbons through the streets, and distant ships moved silently among the stars. This is incredible, Rylan whispered, awe in his voice. I've never seen anything like this. Princess Leora smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the luminescent city. And yet, she said softly, this is only the beginning. There are challenges you cannot imagine, dangers that may test your very being. But you are different. You have survived. And perhaps, Captain Vare, that is exactly what we need. Rylan felt a surge of resolve. He had entered this alien world as a stranger, saved a princess, and now found himself at the heart of a civilization unlike any he had known. He didn't yet understand all the rules, customs, or threats, but one thing was certain. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of a story that would shape not only the fate of a princess but the destiny of an entire empire. And as he looked out over the glowing city, Rylan Vare knew that his journey had truly begun, the unlikely alliance. The days that followed Rylan Vare's sudden arrival in the Celestari Palace were unlike anything he had ever experienced. Each morning, he awoke to the soft glow of the floating lights above his quarters, still marveling at the seamless beauty of alien technology. But admiration alone would not prepare him for the challenges ahead. The Celestari Empire, powerful and disciplined, was not a place for casual visitors. To survive, and to help Princess Leora, he needed to understand their ways fast. Princess Leora herself became his guide. She moved through the palace with a grace that seemed effortless, her every step measured, her gestures elegant. Yet when she spoke with Rylan, there was warmth in her voice, a subtle trust that set him apart from the wary eyes of the royal guards and advisors. You are not like the others, she told him one morning as they walked along a balcony overlooking the luminous city below. Most outsiders arrive here as threats or curiosities. But you acted without hesitation, without calculation, without fear. That is rare, even among the bravest Celestari. Rylan smiled faintly. I just did what had to be done. Anyone would have. Leora's expression softened. Perhaps. But your actions have consequences. By saving me you have become part of our world. And now the Empire watches you closely. Her words were a reminder that survival alone was no longer enough. He had entered the Celestari court as a stranger, but now he had to navigate a world of politics, loyalty, and secrets. And most importantly, he had to find a way to help the princess against dangers that lurked both outside and within the Empire. Learning the rules. Ryland spent the next few days observing the palace's inner workings. Advisors in flowing metallic robes discussed interstellar trade agreements, territorial disputes, and diplomatic missions with a precision that left him awed. The Celestari valued logic, efficiency, and foresight above all else. Yet, despite their advanced intellect, he noticed one recurring challenge: creativity. Humans, Ryland realized, had an unpredictable quality that the Celestari admired from afar but rarely encountered firsthand. This realization gave him a quiet confidence. His survival, his quick thinking, and his ability to act instinctively could become his greatest assets in this strange new world. Princess Leora herself became his ally in this discovery. She introduced him to the archives of the Celestari Empire, vast stores of information preserved in shimmering energy panels. Here he learned about the Empire's enemies, their fleets, and the delicate balance of power across multiple star systems. You see, Leora explained, our greatest threat is not just from outside. Many in the court value tradition above innovation. They do not yet trust that a human, a species from a primitive world, could offer solutions that even we have not considered. Ryland absorbed the knowledge, realizing that winning the trust of the court would require more than bravery. It would require proving his worth through action, strategy, and insight. The first test. It did not take long for his abilities to be tested. During a strategy meeting with the Royal Council, alarms suddenly blared. An enemy reconnaissance fleet had breached the outer perimeter of Celestari space. The court erupted into controlled chaos. Advisors shouted calculations, generals barked orders, and guards readied their weapons. Ryland's training as a captain kicked in immediately. Unlike the Celestari, who relied on centuries of data and logic, he relied on instinct, improvisation, and rapid analysis of the situation. The enemy expects us to react predictably, he said calmly. We need to anticipate their moves and force them into disadvantageous positions. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. Even the seasoned generals paused, unaccustomed to a human commanding their attention. Leora placed a reassuring hand on his arm. Trust him, she whispered. Ryland outlined a daring plan. They would lure the enemy ships into a series of gravity wells near the twin moons orbiting their planet. There, the fleet's own inertia would work against them, allowing precise Celestari energy pulses to disable their ships without a full-scale battle. The concept was unorthodox, risky, but it was grounded in physics, strategy, and, most importantly, human ingenuity. An alliance forms. The council debated fiercely. Many were skeptical, arguing that human unpredictability could lead to disaster. Others, swayed by Princess Leora's confidence in Ryland, agreed to the plan. Slowly, an alliance formed, an unlikely collaboration between human instinct and Celestari precision. Ryland trained alongside the royal guards, sharing tactics, improvisation strategies, and unconventional approaches to combat. At first, the guards resisted, used to rigid training and centuries of tradition. But as Ryland demonstrated his ability to anticipate attacks, avoid traps, and make split-second decisions under pressure, their skepticism turned into respect. Princess Leora observed quietly, occasionally offering guidance and encouragement. She had trusted Ryland from the start, but now she saw the court beginning to accept him as well. Together, human and alien were forming something neither could have achieved alone, a partnership born from necessity, trust, and mutual respect. The human advantage. When the enemy fleet arrived, Ryland's instincts were put to the ultimate test. The Celestari followed his lead, adapting their advanced technology to his unorthodox tactics. Ships maneuvered through the gravity wells, energy pulses disabled the enemy's engines, and for the first time, the Celestari experienced the unpredictable brilliance of human strategy. The battle was brief but decisive. The enemy fleet, expecting a conventional defense, was overwhelmed by a combination of precise Celestari firepower and Ryland's unconventional maneuvers. When the final enemy ship was neutralized, the royal guards cheered, a sound almost alien to Ryland's ears, but filled with genuine admiration. Princess Leora approached him after the battle, her eyes shining with gratitude and awe. "You have proven yourself, Ryland Veyer," she said softly. Not just by saving me but by showing them the value of courage, intuition, and humanity. Rylan allowed himself a small smile. He had entered the Celestari court as a stranger, a human outsider. Now he had formed a bond, not only with the princess but with an entire civilization that had once seemed untouchable. A new respect. In the aftermath, the court gathered to formally acknowledge Rylan's contribution. Elders, generals, and advisors debated whether such a human could truly be trusted. Yet Princess Leora's voice carried authority. "This human has saved the Empire when logic alone could not," she declared. "We cannot ignore his courage, his insight, and his loyalty." For the first time, Rylan felt the weight of belonging. He was no longer merely a visitor. He had become a vital part of an extraordinary alliance. And while the galaxy was vast, full of threats and unknown dangers, he now had allies he could trust. Alien allies, powerful beyond imagination, yet willing to fight beside him. As he stood with Princess Leora on a balcony overlooking the glowing city, Rylan realized that the true journey was only beginning. Survival had brought him here, but collaboration, trust, and ingenuity would carry him forward into the challenges that lay ahead. The Celestari Empire was vast and beautiful, but it was also vulnerable. And now, one human among them would make a difference in ways no one had expected. A threat beyond the stars. The calm after the battle was brief. The Celestari Empire, for all its beauty and precision, was a civilization constantly on guard. Danger had a way of finding even the most secure places. For Captain Rylan Vare, there was no time to rest. Though he had gained the trust of Princess Leora and the royal court, he knew their victories were only temporary. It was during the quiet of the evening, though night on the Celestari capital was unlike anything Rylan had experienced, that alarms blared throughout the palace. Crimson lights pulsed across corridors, and the hum of energy conduits grew louder, signaling an imminent threat. Rylan's instincts kicked in instantly. He joined Princess Leora on the balcony overlooking the city. In the distance he saw them, a fleet of hostile warships, sleek and black, cutting through the void toward the Celestari homeworld. Their movement was swift, precise, and merciless. These were not scouts or raiders, they were an invading force. "The enemy fleet is larger than anticipated," said Leora, her tone steady despite the tension. "They have crossed systems without warning. Our sensors indicate advanced weaponry, faster than anything in our archives. If we engage conventionally, our losses will be catastrophic." Rylan studied the ships, calculating in his mind the odds of success with conventional tactics. Too many variables, too much reliance on predictable patterns. He shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "Evacuation won't save you. Running will only prolong the fight and endanger everyone. You need a strategy that turns their confidence against them." The princess looked at him, a mixture of hope and concern in her glowing eyes. "Explain," she said. Rylan outlined a plan. They would lure the enemy fleet into the twin moons orbiting the planet. Their gravitational fields, combined with precise energy pulses from the Celestari fleet, could disable the attackers' engines and weapons. It was a risky strategy, one that relied on timing, coordination, and human unpredictability, the very thing the enemy would not anticipate. Preparing for battle. The royal court was tense. Advisors debated endlessly, some arguing for a direct assault, others for evacuation of civilians. Rylan listened, recognizing the limits of even this advanced civilization. The Celestari were brilliant, but centuries of structured thinking sometimes left little room for unorthodox approaches. "You must trust me," Rylan said to Princess Leora. "I've faced impossible odds before. If we coordinate this correctly, we can not only save the capital but neutralize their fleet without unnecessary loss of life." Leora placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Then we follow your lead. The Empire will stand behind you." Rylan spent the next hours coordinating with the Celestari fleet commanders. He explained the maneuver step by step, emphasizing timing and adaptability. The alien captains, initially skeptical, began to see the logic in his plan. Slowly, the seeds of an unlikely alliance formed, a partnership between human instinct and Celestari precision. The battle begins. As the enemy fleet approached, tension gripped every officer, soldier, and civilian in the capital. The ships of the Celestari Empire glowed with energy shields and advanced weaponry, but the humans' presence, Rylan Vare's leadership, added an unpredictable factor that no one could have anticipated. Rylan piloted a small tactical vessel alongside the main fleet, his hands steady on the controls. He watched the enemy's movements carefully, noting patterns and anticipating reactions. Unlike the Celestari, who relied on centuries of calculations and simulations, he relied on instinct, observation, and rapid adaptation. "Prepare to engage gravity wells," he commanded. "Timing must be precise. Wait for my signal." The enemy fleet fell into the trap, lured by the apparent vulnerability of the Celestari vessels. As predicted, their overconfidence led them into the twin moons' gravitational pull. Ryland's heart pounded, but his focus never wavered. With precise energy pulses, he disabled the enemy engines, one ship after another, until the fleet was crippled and scattered. The battle was swift but decisive. Where the enemy expected a predictable defense, they encountered innovation, courage, and the chaos of human intuition. Ryland's tactics, combined with Celestari firepower, had turned the tide in minutes. Aftermath and awe. When the smoke cleared, the Celestari capital remained unscathed. Ships returned to their docks, energy shields glimmering faintly, and citizens emerged from protective shelters, marveling at the victory. Ryland stepped onto the palace balcony, exhausted but exhilarated. Princess Leora joined him, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "You have done what no one else could, Ryland Vere," she said softly. "You have shown the Empire that courage, strategy, and instinct can equal centuries of knowledge." Ryland shook his head modestly. "I couldn't have done it without your fleet and your people. They adapted to my plan just as much as I relied on them. That's what makes this victory possible." Leora smiled. "And yet, your human ingenuity changed everything. You have proven that even among the stars, humans can be more than they seem." Gaining trust. Following the battle, the royal court convened to recognize Ryland's contribution. Elders, generals, and advisors debated whether a human, fragile, unpredictable, and unknown, could truly be trusted. Yet Princess Leora's voice carried authority. "He saved the Empire when all logic suggested failure," she declared. "He deserves our respect, our trust, and our guidance. Let us not dismiss what he has accomplished." Ryland felt a sense of belonging he had never known. He had entered the Celestari court as an outsider, a human stranger in a civilization far beyond his own. Now he had earned not only the trust of the princess but of the Empire itself. The calm before the storm. Despite the victory, Ryland knew this was only the beginning. The enemy fleet had been a test, a warning of greater dangers lurking in the galaxy. The Celestari Empire, for all its brilliance, was still vulnerable. And the decisions he made now would have consequences far beyond the capital city. As he stood beside Princess Leora, overlooking the shimmering towers and energy streams, he felt a mix of awe and determination. "We've won today," he said quietly. "But the galaxy is vast. There are threats we haven't even seen yet." Leora nodded. "And now you are part of our world, Ryland Vere. Together we will face whatever comes next. The stars themselves may test us, but we will endure." Ryland allowed himself a small smile. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and filled with unknown enemies, but he was ready. He had faced impossible odds before, and now he stood at the heart of an alien empire, prepared to fight for its survival and perhaps change the course of the galaxy itself. The battle was over. But the war beyond the stars had only just begun. The human advantage. The day after the enemy fleet's defeat, the Celestari Palace was alive with activity. Ships were repaired, energy conduits reinforced, and civilians cautiously resumed their routines. Yet beneath the calm surface, tension lingered. The threat beyond the stars had been temporarily neutralized, but Ryland Vere knew the galaxy was vast, and more dangers lurked in the void. In the strategy room of the palace, the hum of energy panels filled the air as Ryland studied the holographic star charts. Princess Leora Valen stood beside him, her gaze scanning the display. "The enemy fleet you defeated was only a reconnaissance force," she said softly. "Larger threats are likely gathering beyond the outer systems. If we are not careful, the Empire could face an attack far greater than what we just survived." Ryland's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to think ahead. Anticipate their moves before they reach us. And we need to train your fleet to adapt, quickly, unpredictably. That's where humans have an advantage." Leora turned to him, curiosity and admiration in her glowing eyes. "Explain." Ryland gestured toward the holographic fleet models. "Humans can improvise in ways the Celestari cannot. Your ships, your technology, and your calculations are incredible, but they follow patterns. Predictable patterns. If we train your pilots to think differently, act instinctively, and adapt mid-battle, we can create a force they won't expect." Training the Celestari. The next days were a whirlwind of preparation. Rylan worked alongside the elite Celestari pilots, teaching them unconventional tactics, split-second decision-making, and ways to exploit the enemy's assumptions. At first, the pilots resisted. Centuries of tradition had taught them that precision, planning, and protocol were paramount. Yet Rylan's human approach, relying on instinct, creativity, and improvisation, slowly began to change their perspective. Princess Leora observed every session. "It is remarkable," she said quietly. "Even those who doubted you now listen. They are beginning to see the value of your human perspective." Rylan smiled. "It's not just me. It's the combination of your fleet's power and human adaptability. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone." By the end of the week, the Celestari pilots had embraced new strategies. They executed maneuvers that even seasoned generals had not predicted. Their coordination with Rylan's tactics created a synergy of instinct and precision, an advantage that could decide the outcome of any battle. The next threat emerges. As the sun, or what the Celestari called the Twin Suns, rose over the capital, alarms sounded again. Sensors detected a massive fleet approaching from a distant star system, far more advanced and numerous than the previous attackers. This was no longer a test, it was a true invasion. Rylan and Leora raced to the command bridge, the energy panels lighting their determined faces. "They've learned from the last defeat," Rylan said grimly. "This time we can't rely on old strategies. We need to be faster, smarter, unpredictable." Leora nodded. "Your human advantage will be our edge. Lead the fleet, Rylan. Show them what a combination of courage and ingenuity can achieve." The Battle of the Twin Moons. The Celestari fleet engaged the enemy near the Twin Moons once again. Rylan piloted a tactical ship at the forefront, eyes scanning the enemy's formation. The black ships moved confidently, expecting another predictable defense. Rylan signaled his pilots, "Remember your training. Trust your instincts. Adapt to their moves. They won't anticipate what we do next." As the enemy fired energy blasts, the Celestari fleet responded with Rylan's unorthodox maneuvers. Ships darted unpredictably, energy pulses intercepted weapons mid-flight, and gravity wells of the Twin Moons turned the invaders' own momentum against them. Rylan's instincts guided every maneuver, and the fleet responded with flawless execution. For the first time, the Celestari generals witnessed the raw advantage of human adaptability. Where centuries of knowledge had predicted possible outcomes, instinct, courage, and improvisation allowed Rylan and the pilots to defy expectations. Turning the tide. The enemy fleet faltered. Their formation broke, engines disabled, and ships spun helplessly in the moon's gravitational pull. Rylan coordinated precise energy pulses, striking key points on the enemy ships and neutralizing them without unnecessary destruction. Princess Leora watched from the command balcony, awe in her eyes. "You've done it again," she whispered. "This human, he doesn't just survive, he transforms everything around him." Rylan allowed himself a brief smile. "It's teamwork. The fleet adapted, trusted instinct, and followed my lead. That's what makes the difference." As the final enemy ships fell into the moon's traps, the battle ended decisively. The Celestari Empire had survived, and Rylan's human perspective had proven to be a force multiplier. Recognition and respect. After the battle, the royal court convened to acknowledge Rylan's contribution. Elders and generals, once skeptical, now spoke with respect. Princess Leora addressed the assembly. "Captain Rylan Vare has shown us that courage, intuition, and adaptability are as powerful as any weapon. He has saved the Empire not once but twice by teaching us that even centuries of knowledge must evolve. Today we honor him as a protector of the Celestari Empire." Rylan bowed, humbled by the recognition. He had entered the palace as a stranger, a human from a distant world, and now he had earned the trust, respect, and admiration of an entire civilization. The path ahead. Yet even in victory, Rylan knew the galaxy would not remain peaceful for long. The enemy forces had been only a glimpse of the challenges ahead. Beyond the stars, entire fleets, new civilizations, and unforeseen dangers waited. Princess Leora stood beside him, her eyes reflecting both admiration and concern. "You've changed the way we fight, Rylan. But this is only the beginning. The galaxy is larger, more dangerous than we imagined." Rylan nodded, determination hardening in his chest. "Then we prepare. We adapt. And when the next threat comes, we'll be ready. Humanity may be small, but we have one thing that can change everything: courage, instinct, and the will to act when it matters most." Together, human and alien looked toward the stars, knowing that the battles ahead would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. But for the first time the Celestari Empire had an advantage no one could predict. A human mind, brave and resourceful, ready to face the challenges of the galaxy. The war was far from over. But the human advantage had been revealed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The court's recognition. The Celestari Palace was bathed in the soft glow of the twin moons as the aftermath of the battles settled into a fragile calm. Though the enemy fleet had been defeated, the events had left the empire shaken. Courtiers, generals and advisors moved through the grand halls with hushed voices, each pondering the remarkable human who had changed the tide of battle. Captain Ryland Vare stood quietly in one of the palace's observation chambers, watching the glowing city below. The twin moons reflected off the crystalline towers, casting a shimmering pattern across the streets. The Celestari, with all their advanced technology and centuries of wisdom, had just witnessed something they could hardly explain. Human ingenuity and instinct prevailing against overwhelming odds. Princess Leora Valen entered the room, her footsteps silent on the polished floor. She approached Rylan, her expression serious yet filled with warmth. "The council has convened," she said. "They wish to formally recognize your actions. This is unprecedented, a human being honored by the Celestari royal court." Rylan allowed himself a small, modest smile. "I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because it had to be done. But, thank you, Princess." Leora's eyes sparkled with admiration. "It is more than just a thank you. Your actions have demonstrated something we have rarely seen. Courage that defies calculation, creativity that defies logic, and loyalty that defies expectation. You have become part of our story, Rylan. Today the Empire acknowledges that." The royal court. The grand hall of the Celestari royal court was unlike any room Rylan had ever seen. Towering columns shimmered with iridescent energy, and the ceiling reflected the cosmos itself, stars and nebulae twisting in constant motion. Members of the court, the advisors, generals and elder scholars, stood in precise formation, their eyes fixed on the two figures who entered, Princess Leora and Captain Rylan Vare. The council murmured among themselves. Many still harbored doubts about this fragile human whose species had barely ventured beyond their home system. Yet curiosity and respect mingled in their gaze. A human had stood among them, faced danger and emerged victorious, not through superior technology but through courage, instinct and quick thinking. Leora raised her hand, signaling the court to silence. "Esteemed members of the Celestari Council," she began, her voice echoing with calm authority. "Captain Rylan Vare has done what few could. He has saved the Empire, guided our fleet to victory, and proven that even a single human mind can have a profound impact upon us all." Rylan bowed, feeling the weight of their attention. Every eye in the hall was on him. It was a moment that could have been intimidating, yet he felt a deep sense of purpose. The speech. Leora continued, her voice unwavering. "Many of you may question the value of a human. Our knowledge is vast, our technology unmatched, and our strategies perfected over centuries. Yet this human, Rylan Vare, has shown us that ingenuity and courage cannot always be predicted by logic. He has reminded us that strength is not measured solely in years of experience or the power of weapons, but in the will to act when it matters most." The court remained silent, listening intently. Then one of the elder advisors, a tall figure with silver-hued skin and intricate markings across his armor, spoke. "Princess, the human has risked his life for our people. And yet, he is unpredictable. How can we trust him?" Leora turned to Rylan. "Trust is not given lightly in the Celestari Empire," she said. "But actions speak louder than tradition. Captain Vare has proven his worth, not just through victory but through his loyalty, courage and wisdom. Today we honor him." Recognition bestowed. The ceremonial presentation was simple yet profound. A luminescent insignia appeared before Rylan, hovering in mid-air. It glowed with shifting colors, symbolizing protection, courage and allegiance. The insignia was the highest honor the Celestari Empire could bestow upon a non-citizen, the title of Protector of the Celestari Realm. Rylan reached out and accepted it, feeling a surge of pride tempered by humility. "I will do my best to live up to this honor," he said, his voice steady. "Not for glory, but to protect the people who have trusted me, and to stand beside Princess Leora." The court members nodded, some still skeptical but most visibly impressed. Where once they had doubted a human, they now saw a warrior, a strategist and an ally. Rylan had earned not only recognition but respect, a rare and invaluable gift in the Celestari Empire. A personal connection. After the formalities ended, Rylan and Leora walked through the palace gardens, a serene area filled with floating flora and softly glowing pools of water. The quiet allowed them a moment away from the eyes of the court. "You've done more than I imagined," Leora said softly, her gaze on the distant city lights. "The council respects you now, but I admire you for more than that. Your courage, your intuition. It's something rare even among the bravest of my people." Rylan felt a warmth he had not expected. "It's easy to act when the person you protect is as extraordinary as you are," he replied, careful to keep his tone modest. Leora smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and something deeper. "We are allies now, Rylan. But more than that, perhaps something greater will come from this, if the galaxy allows it." Rylan nodded, understanding that their bond had grown stronger, not just through battle but through trust, shared danger and mutual respect. Looking forward, the recognition from the court was more than ceremonial. It was a statement. Humans could be more than primitive beings in the galaxy. Courage, ingenuity, and determination could make a difference, even against civilizations far beyond Earth's technology. Rylan knew that the battles they had faced so far were only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of enemies and unpredictable forces waited beyond the stars. But now he had allies he could trust, a civilization that respected him, and a bond with Princess Leora that gave him motivation beyond duty. Standing on the balcony, overlooking the glowing city, Rylan felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. He had entered the Celestari court as a stranger. He had survived impossible dangers. He had proven the value of human courage. And now he was recognized as a protector, ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy would throw at him next. The stars beyond the palace shimmered, promising new adventures, dangers and discoveries. And Rylan Veyer, human among the stars, was ready for all of it. A new journey begins. The Celestari capital glowed beneath the twin moons, a city of shimmering towers, flowing energy streams, and floating walkways that reflected the brilliance of an entire civilization. Captain Rylan Veyer stood at the edge of a balcony, looking out at the expanse of stars beyond. The battles had been won, the enemy fleet defeated, and the royal court had officially recognized him as a protector of the Celestari Empire. Yet even in victory, Rylan felt the pulse of something greater. The galaxy was far larger and far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Beside him, Princess Leora Valen stood quietly, her silver-blue robes catching the soft glow of the moons. She placed a hand on the railing, her eyes scanning the horizon, thoughtful yet confident. "The Empire is safe, for now," she said softly. "But out there, beyond the stars, threats gather that we cannot yet see. Entire civilizations, hostile forces, unpredictable dangers. They will come. And when they do, we must be ready." Rylan nodded, determination hardening within him. "Then we'll face them together. You have the knowledge, the fleet, and the people. I have human instinct, courage, and adaptability. Together, we can meet anything the galaxy throws at us." Leora turned to him, a faint smile forming. "You are more than a human, Rylan Veyer. You are a symbol of hope, a bridge between your world and mine. And perhaps, something more. But first, we must focus on what lies ahead. Preparation for the unknown." In the days that followed, Rylan worked tirelessly with the Celestari fleet. He trained pilots, shared tactics, and introduced unconventional strategies that combined human intuition with Celestari technology. The court, once skeptical, had grown to respect him, not just for his victories but for his leadership, his ability to inspire, and his vision for a new way to defend the Empire. Rylan also spent time learning from the Celestari themselves. Their technology, their culture, and their philosophy of balance and harmony fascinated him. He realized that survival in the galaxy would require more than courage. It would demand knowledge, adaptability, and collaboration across species. Princess Leora remained a constant presence. They studied the archives together, analyzed star charts, and discussed possible threats. With each passing day, their partnership strengthened. Trust, respect, and a shared sense of duty bound them together. A glimpse of the future. One evening, as the twin moons cast long, shimmering shadows across the city, Rylan and Leora stood at the palace balcony, watching the fleet prepare for patrols across nearby systems. "Do you ever wonder," Rylan asked, "what else is out there? Beyond the known systems, the galaxies we haven't charted?" Leora's gaze followed the distant stars. "The universe is vast. Civilizations rise and fall, wars are fought, and mysteries remain unsolved. But now with you here, I feel we have a chance. A chance to protect not just the Empire but perhaps the galaxy itself." Rylan smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure we're ready. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Her eyes softened. Together, she agreed. And in that moment, amidst the glow of the city and the distant stars, Rylan felt a connection deeper than victory or duty, a connection born from trust, courage, and shared purpose. The call of adventure. News from the outer system soon arrived. New fleets were mobilizing, strange signals detected from uncharted sectors, and whispers of a powerful alliance forming beyond Celestari space. The peace they had fought to secure was fragile, a mere pause before the next storm. Rylan studied the reports, analyzing every detail with a mixture of human instinct and learned strategy. "This is bigger than anything we've faced," he said to Leora. "But it's also an opportunity. If we act quickly and wisely, we can prevent a war that could span galaxies." Leora nodded. "Then we leave no stone unturned. Our fleets, our intelligence, and now your unique perspective will guide us. The Celestari Empire may have been strong before, but with you, it is stronger than ever." A new alliance. Rylan's presence had already begun to change the perception of humans across the galaxy. Word of his victories and ingenuity spread to neighboring civilizations, turning once skeptical observers into allies, or at least cautious partners. The Celestari, for the first time in centuries, were beginning to embrace adaptability alongside their tradition. As he worked with Leora to coordinate defenses, Rylan realized that the galaxy was no longer a place of isolation. Humans, once considered insignificant, could now play a pivotal role. And he, this human among stars, was at the center of it all. Facing the unknown. On the eve of their first deep space mission, Rylan stood on the observation deck, the stars stretching infinitely before him. The galaxy was alive with potential and danger. Each star could hide allies or enemies, each uncharted system a puzzle waiting to be solved. Princess Leora joined him silently, her presence comforting and steady. "Are you ready?" she asked. Rylan turned, determination burning in his eyes. "I've never been more ready. We've faced impossible odds before. This time, we set the course for the galaxy itself." Leora smiled. "Then let the journey begin. A human among the stars." As the Celestari fleet prepared to depart, Rylan took one last look at the city that had become his home and the princess who had become his ally. He had entered this alien world as a stranger, faced impossible challenges, and earned a place among a civilization centuries beyond his own. And yet, he knew this was only the beginning. Beyond the known systems, beyond the twin moons and the glowing capital, awaited adventure, danger, and discovery. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and alive. But Rylan Veyer, human among the stars, was ready. With courage, ingenuity, and the trust of an entire civilization, he would face whatever the universe had in store. The stars beckoned, and for the first time in his life he felt truly limitless. The human advantage had been proven. And now, the real journey, one that would reshape the galaxy, was only beginning.